There's one final award this evening, the Popular Mechanics Breakthrough Leadership Award. And this recognizes people who have a long-standing history of busting technological paradigms and inspiring others with their vision. And we've got an ideal winner with us here tonight for many reasons. Now, most people might think of James Cameron as a movie director, but at Popular Mechanics, we've long thought of him as an explorer and inventor who also happens to be a filmmaker. Growing up in small-town Ontario, Jim was so inspired by Jacques Cousteau that he learned to scuba dive in a YMCA pool, even though he lived 400 miles from the ocean. That passion is still there today as Jim travels the world to promote environmental conservation and oceanic research. Before making Titanic, he dove to see the wreck for himself. Lately, he's been consulting with NASA to improve camera systems for future space vehicles. Similarly, most people know about the 3D cameras Jim helped create to film Avatar. You saw one of them outside, and his partner, Vince Pace, who runs Camera on Pace Group with Jim, is here tonight, and they're working on the next generation of 3D imaging systems, not just for movies, but for all sorts of applications. Jim has always been an engineer. As a boy, he built a trebuchet from an old hay wagon, and I didn't even think I knew what a trebuchet was when I was, when I was a kid, and flung 20-pound rocks around his grandparents' farm. He and his friends made the local newspaper for building a candle-powered hot air balloon that they launched at night, freaking out the town with UFO sightings. That one I do know. I built one of those with a dry cleaner bag. Yep. One unlucky mouse even found itself inside a submersible fashioned from a paint can and a mayonnaise jar being lowered off a bridge to the bottom of Chippewa Creek. The mouse came back dry, and today Jim is working to help design a submersible that could carry him to the deepest point in the ocean, the bottom of the Mariana Trench. One thing I've found in meeting scientists and engineers is almost everyone I've met was first inspired by some great work of science fiction, literature, or filmmaking. And Jim Cameron was one of those too. When he was 14, he saw Stanley Kubrick's great 2001: A Space Odyssey. The film inspired a directorial career that has redefined Hollywood success and reshaped the technology of filmmaking. But for that subject, we thought it might be best to let you hear from someone who's seen Jim's creative vision and relentless determination up close. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sigourney Weaver.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be here tonight with all of you. This is where science fiction is coming alive in front of our eyes. And I congratulate all the winners, young and old. It's really so exciting and inspiring. It's also just a huge thrill to be here for Popular Mechanics. I actually, when I was researching the magazine, I went online and, you know, there's everything in this magazine. I thought, how could I have survived this long without a subscription to Popular Mechanics? Okay. And also, how could I resist coming tonight to help honor and annoy a man who I've known since I first woke up from a deep cryogenic sleep as Ellen Ripley. Jim's films are known for their pioneering special effects, from the watery alien in the abyss to the liquid silver man of Terminator 2 to even the power loader, which I got to use in Aliens. And every single film he's done has helped inspire digital revolutions that have transformed movie making. Jim's grand vision and his determination to push boundaries makes everybody want to work with him because he really knows his stuff and he's really demanding. It's something I'm proud to have done twice, first in Aliens and then in the groundbreaking movie Avatar. Now, in Avatar, that journey to Pandora was the culmination of Jim's love of science, technology, the environment, storytelling, nature, art, and romance. I couldn't wait to be a part of it, if only because when I read the script with all the dire horses and thanators and banshees, I thought, how the hell is he going to pull this off? You know, people often ask me about the process of making Avatar, like it was some conventional experience of actors in front of a green screen, but frankly, there was nothing conventional about making Avatar, and it certainly had nothing to do with a green screen. Jim transformed the process of motion capture by turning it into performance capture. As a storyteller, in spite of all of his technical prowess, he knew that what was most important was the emotions of the characters. So, for instance, in Jim's performance capture, you have a camera on your head, there are cameras on the ceiling, he has a camera, there are guys with cameras, and everything is picking up every nuance of the character. He would capture, then he built this amazing kind of curved hammerhead-like camera in which you could actually see yourself as your future character, even though you were in a little black suit with ears and a tail. You could see what you were going to be like in a roughed-out version. And after he had captured one master shot that he really liked involving all the characters, he could then come back when there was no one around and do all the coverage. I mean, it was more science fiction than the story we were telling. Of course, when I was asked to give this award for popular mechanics to Jim, I thought, but is he the most popular mechanic? And I thought, you know, usually on the set, I am the most popular person. But I want to tell you why he deserves this. Every time he brought out this camera, he would, you know, and every now and then I would say, now, just tell me again how it works. And he would explain with great patience and clarity how the lenses worked and the refraction and this. And I would go, yes. And then I would get my friends to ask him how it worked, and I would listen very carefully. And then I would eavesdrop when other people asked him, and I would try to follow. And inside, I'm always doing this, which means I really don't understand what he's saying, and he always says it with such gracious patience. So even though the guy is a wonk and challenges are catnip to him, and he's just a natural engineer, he really is a popular mechanic because he never makes you feel dumb. He never says, Sigourney, did you really go to Stanford? He's always patient and kind. So to me, not only is he inspiring a whole new generation of popular mechanics, girls and boys, but he really deserves this award for being who he is. Ladies and gentlemen, wonks and wizards, please welcome my wonderful friend, James Cameron.
Well, I can't think of a lovelier way to receive an award. And as we can see, Sigourney's not a scientist. She just plays one in the movies. Of course, she's quite brilliant. And actually, I think we both enjoyed the creation of your character, Grace, for Avatar. And what I was trying to do in writing that character was to celebrate science and the mind and passion of a scientist, which is really all about curiosity. And, you know, Avatar is not really a laugh riot. There's not a lot of laughs in the film, but there's one laugh that I'm particularly pleased by, which is when Grace is dying and they take her to the place that she had wanted to investigate as a scientist. And she sees this glowing tree that she had so much wanted to get samples from, and she says, you know, I need to take some samples. And the audience laughs, a laugh of appreciation, because they get who your character is and why it means so much to you. And, you know, so I think we did manage to create a character that celebrates science and the passion of science and the humanity of science, meaning it's people that have curiosity that go out and find these things and discover these things and create these new things. It's really an honor for me to stand here on the same stage with so many of these other innovators here tonight, and I know that even those of you that haven't gotten up here are big either practitioners or fans of the practice of science and technology. And, you know, I'm inspired by those kids that just stood up here, that really show that the spirit of innovation is still alive and well in the young folks in this country coming up, and how critically important that is. because it's all about curiosity combined with that sense that you can actually do it yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody else to create it. If you've got an idea, you go after it. And that's what I always loved as a kid, reading Popular Mechanics. I mean, I loved this magazine, and I think it in a way shaped my life philosophy, which is one, that there are going to be there's going to be this amazing future that we can only barely imagine right now. And if you think about I was upstairs going through all of the Popular Mechanics covers from back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and how hopeful they were. All these amazing things, flying cars and personal submarines that you could take your kids on a picnic in, and cars that turned into boats, and all kinds of fantastic stuff. And it just seemed to promise this amazing future. And as a kid, I'm talking about in the 60s now, it was also the golden age of the exploration, the start of the space age, and sending people to the moon, and also the exploration of the oceans with Jacques Cousteau and so on. It just seemed like a world of infinite possibility. Of course, at the same time, it was a world that was torn apart by civil rights and the Vietnam War and the threat of nuclear annihilation hanging over our heads and all that. So that there was this sense that we were actually living in a science fiction world. I had loved science fiction so much as a younger kid. Then as I was now becoming a teenager and a young adult, I was thinking, I'm living in a science fiction world. Not only the dystopian science fiction world where we could all be destroyed, but this exciting world of vast potential. And it sparked my imagination and appealed to my innate sense of curiosity. And I think curiosity is the most powerful thing that we have as human beings. It really defines us and drives us to create all of the things that you see around you, just in terms of daily life here in New York City, for example, skyscrapers and automobiles, things like that we take utterly for granted, but that 99% of the human race that preceded us would have considered to be wonders bordering on magic. And Arthur Clarke's, one of Clarke's laws, I think he has 3 laws, I think this might be his second law, like the second law of thermodynamics, is that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And we live in an age that our predecessors would have considered to be pure magic, but we just accept it because we adapt to our technology. And I think that it's interesting that so many innovators, whether they're engineers or space scientists or astrophysicists or whomever, so many of the space scientists that I've met were inspired by science fiction as kids, and it appealed to their sense of imagination, their sense of what might be possible out there, and that deep curiosity to find out, not only what is possible, but what can I do, me personally, to find out something that nobody else has ever found out. And it's that sense of empowerment. And really in the magazine, it's great because you've got this wonderful promise of a bright future. You open it up and there's an article about that. Then there's some cars. Then there's some helicopters. And then there's some, compact cabinet building at the end, or how to rebuild a carburetor. And so you go from the most fantastic to, very proximal bits of technology that are going to be in your life fairly soon, right down to things you can go out in the garage and do. And so to me, it connects the dots. It says not only are these things possible, not only are we this great inventive species, but you get up, throw that magazine down, get up off your ass and go out there and make something, And I think everybody that's been on this stage here tonight has made that cognitive connection that I can do it. It's not obvious to most people. Most people are satisfied to be spectators or don't feel some sense of empowerment. And where does that empowerment come from? It comes from a magazine that celebrates science and technology and tells people that they can do it. It comes from good teachers. I guarantee you those kids that were up here, they have some good educators standing behind them telling them they can do it and guiding and shaping, why it's important for them to do what they did. So I think we should give them a round of applause too. For me, it was Mr. McKenzie in my high school in Niagara Falls, Canada, who encouraged us to start a theater arts program at a very jockey high school that had never even thought of having a theater arts program. He was a biology teacher. He wasn't teaching theater. He wasn't teaching the arts, and it made me realize that you don't have to choose between the arts, being an artist, being a creator, and some kind of career in the sciences or following your sense of curiosity. And my career's meandered all over the place. I don't even think of it as a career in a way. I was curious about filmmaking. In college, I couldn't decide between the arts and being a scientist. I studied marine biology and physics and astronomy. And I ultimately decided to become a storyteller. It was only years later, after the success of Titanic, that I had some money to go and do some of the things that I wanted to do in terms of exploration. And it was this interesting cycle. A few years earlier, I had made a movie called The Abyss. While I was doing research for The Abyss, because I was already a well-established filmmaker at that point, I felt I can just call up anybody I want to call up. I'll get one phone call, and so I called Bob Ballard, who was at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and I said, how do these remotely operated vehicles work? He said, well, come on out and I'll show you. And so that began my love with the actual advanced hardware of deep ocean technology. So I incorporated in The Abyss in a fantasy and a science fiction movie. And then a few years later, I started a project called Titanic. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, maybe we should go farther. It's that moment of, what if? Wouldn't it be cool if? And maybe I can. And in that moment I said, why don't we go to the real Titanic wreck, 12,000 feet down, and film it for a fictional Hollywood movie, which was a pretty radical idea. I talked the studio into it somehow by saying we'd just bill it to the marketing department because it'd make a great story, So I made that, but then I got to dive the wreck, and I'm an avid diver, as Jim mentioned, and I've spent thousands of hours underwater. I got to dive Titanic, but then I had to go make the movie. So that was the next year and a half of my life. And I thought, all right, next time I'm just going to cut out the movie making part, and I'll just go do the diving. So I spent 8 years in between Titanic and the start of making Avatar, diving all over the world, building robotics, fiber optic spooling, ROVs, and so on. And the fun of it, I found, was not just the exploration, which I love, and that idea of almost living in a science fiction story, but I found that the fun of it was working with a small team of talented engineers, technology people. Sometimes it's software writers, depending on what the project is, and coming up with something completely new and not knowing if it could be done or not. If you knew it could be done, let somebody else do it, but not knowing if it can be done. That's the fun. And you're going to hit hurdles. There are going to be things that you just don't think you can overcome. And at that point, that's when the leadership part of it comes in, and that's where you have to lie and tell them it's all going to be okay. And you know what? I think that when you don't know what you can't do, you do amazing things. And a lot of these young people that I work with, engineers, software people, whether it's working on Avatar, creating a whole new form of virtual production, or whether it's building a submarine like the vehicle that Jim mentioned that's going to go down 36,000 feet. These are young teams. These are people in their early 20s, and they don't know what they can't do, so they just go do it. And I love that. I see a bit of myself in them, because when I was just coming into the film business and then later starting to work in exploration, I didn't know what I couldn't do, and I didn't let that slow me down. And so I think that it's that sense of a drive to physically do it yourself, coupled with that insatiable curiosity that makes people explorers. And whether that's exploring in the larger sense of the sciences, of trying to understand the natural world and how it works, or trying to understand how mechanical systems work, how engineered systems work, making something new, either exploring and seeing something new that's never been seen before, or creating something new, a machine, a device that's never been seen before. I think that's what makes us humans. In my field, in movies, there's this sense that you can be a humanistic filmmaker and you can understand writing and actors and dialogue and all that stuff, but if you're too technical, you're moving away from an expression of humanity. And I think that's not true at all. I think we're technical beings, and I think that our relationship with technology is what defines us. And of course, our emotions and our foibles and our relationships and all those things. And you have to, as an artist, you have to pay proper service to both. But I think that who we are is a technological species, and so the magazine helps continuously define us and relate technology back to our culture. And I just want to say one last thing, and it's about the idea of science, and we tried to create a scientist character and celebrate her. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is that our culture doesn't value science and technology and the education for science and technology the way it should. And we see that the spirit of innovation is still alive and well, but we need to find ways, and I think the magazine does it so beautifully, to celebrate science and technology, because we've got a lot of problems coming up in this century. We've got a climate crisis that's going to change life on our planet, and innovation is going to be a big key to we're going to have to think our way out of these problems that we face: the depletion of resources, the need for sustainable forms of energy, the overheating of the planet, the acidification of the oceans. These are very real challenges. But I think there's a bigger problem, and this is something that I would challenge everybody in this room to go out and try to do something about and make a difference about, because I think we're all, in a sense, kindred spirits here, which is that our culture cherry picks from science what we want. We take what we want. We take the iPod. We love the iPod, love the iPad, love this, love that. But we don't want to listen when the scientists tell us something we don't want to hear. And there's a fundamental lack of respect for science in this country and really globally around the world. And the scientists are telling us right now that we have to do certain things. And it's not because the grassroots populace is not taking it in and not respecting science. We're allowing the divisive denier community to influence us, when really we've got to start influencing policy. Otherwise, all of these innovations are not going to amount to anything, because they won't be cost effective. I mean, they won't be embraced as the solutions that need to be embraced. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's not enough just to show the innovation, how it's done. We also have to, as a group, want that innovation to become what the transformation that's necessary. So right now we have to have some transformative technologies, and we're not embracing them because of policy. And I think that's even holding back some people, feeling like, why should we innovate? It just gets ignored. That beautiful wind machine, wind turbine, the black flying wing that we saw in the lobby. I want to see thousands of those flying. I think that's an amazing piece of hardware, and it's beautifully symbolic of both the spirit of innovation and the challenge that's ahead of us, because we've got to make those at scale, and we've got to do it quick. Anyway, he asked me to speak for 15 minutes, so I just wanted you to know, if you fell asleep in the middle of that, it's his fault. And by the way, he used up my entire speech before I got on stage, so I'm just winging it here. Anyway, thank you so much.